In this video, I want to break down how the powers that be need a crisis to provide us a use case for whatever tool they see fit, and how cryptocurrency is going to become way more important than the phone you hold in your hand right now. The first crisis that I want to talk about is September 11th, and from that, the NSA were able to pass a law where they could have unlimited surveillance on everybody in the world. It was a tragic situation that we had with 9/11, but this then gave them the powers that they needed to search anything they wanted, go into your phone from wherever they wanted. And these things, again, is another point that I'm saying, that they need a crisis to happen to provide us with a use case. They couldn't just go into everyone's stuff and look at everyone's things. That there had to be the catalyst for it to happen. So that's that example there. The next thing to happen was the 2008 financial collapse. And from this, people don't really understand that this was the birth of cryptocurrency. And this was the start of it. Crypto didn't exist before this date. There was ideas of it, of course, but this was the catalyst to set off Bitcoin and other coins. This is the first thing that happened. So there had to be another crisis. The powers that be pushed the narrative that this is the new thing that we need. And that's what happened in 2008. Obviously, then we move on and we all know about the pandemic and the crisis that happened, and then we have a solution, which is, comment below. I'm not going to go into it too much. And then another situation is, for example, electric cars. People didn't want electric cars. People were happy. You have the motorheads. They're happy with the vehicles that they have. And the powers that be, then obviously you have the crisis, which is climate change. And then the narrative is, the answer to that situation is electric vehicles. But they don't go into, the cost of bringing the materials for electric vehicles. If you look into that, the carbon footprint of producing an electric vehicle is way more than a lifetime of a very non-efficient vehicle. So these things that they don't tell you, but it helps the narrative and it pushes the narrative that, oh, there's the problem and this is the solution. And then you move on to another situation like a company like Starlink, which is obviously Elon Musk's company, which is a internet provider. They provide internet around the world via satellites, which is obviously a new age thing. And this was seen as like, it was sort of a gimmick thing. Then you have a crisis in Ukraine, and this not very useful technology, or not seen as a necessity technology, becomes very necessary, because now all of a sudden you can see that Elon Musk is sending internet there, and he's also done it in Iran. But these things wouldn't be seen as a good thing unless you have the crisis. The crisis needs to happen for it to have the use case. This is what I'm getting to with these bigger points of like where we're going and how I think crypto is going to become the next necessity that we need. Obviously, this is a brilliant thing. I think it's a good technology, Starlink. I'm not dissing it. I think it's a good idea. But when you add in, for example, NSA and Starlink together, it's like, okay, they can see everything from everywhere anyway, but they can do it much quicker and more efficiently now. But again, it becomes a necessity we didn't need before, but then you have a crisis, and then now all of a sudden it's the new norm, and this is what they're pushing, the narrative for that. So the next thing that I'm looking at is, right at this moment in time, you have a couple of major banks in the world that are in serious trouble, and it's looking like there's a possibility of a collapse. As you can see here, we've got Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank. These are very big banks. They seem to be in trouble. It's not looking good for them. Pensions are not looking too stable either, which is not a good thing. As you can see here, if these banks go under, there's going to be a massive situation going on where things are going to change, and it's going to be very quick. But is this the crisis? Is this the catalyst that's going to push us towards crypto? Is this the start of it? I can look at a few other things as well that I've seen. For example, pound sterling. Obviously, I'm British. Pound to dollar is the lowest it's ever been. The lowest it's ever been. What is the lowest? You can see here that I brought up. What is the lowest the pound to dollar has been? See, $1.06 for every pound, and that happened on the 26th of September. Right at this current time, we're on the 6th of October. So that only happened like literally last week or the week before. That's what's happening in the UK. The cost of living is going up. So we're starting to feel the crisis. I can tell you that in the UK, we're starting to feel the crisis. That something needs to change, that something needs to happen. China, the banks are failing. People are running to try to get their money out of the banks. There's been a whole situation there. You can look into that. That's a whole nother video. But the banks are in serious trouble in China. And it's having a knock-on effect, because you have China, they do a lot of development around the world. It's going to affect the rest of the world badly. So you've got these two things that are happening right now, which are, again, crisis. China banks in crisis. There you go. You see another one. Next one. Turkey's inflation right now. Turkey is a European country, in part of the EU, the first world countries. You've got inflation surging to 83%. 83%. Now you imagine that. They're importing 550% more gold than normal because the currency they're holding is not holding. It's not holding its value. So they've got to use something else, which is going to be obviously gold or some other form of gold, or, you know, maybe a crypto. And then it's not only in Turkey. You see, Argentina's inflation is 80%. We're going around the world here. These are not close countries. They're not right next to each other. They're far around the world. So, you know, this kind of thing is making me think, is this all part of the narrative? You have the WF and the powers that be that listen to them, and all these governments. There seems to be a lot of chopping and changing with the leaders around the world, and they all seem to be on this one narrative. And it feels to me, and this might sound a bit tinfoil hattish, but it feels to me like they're trying to cause a massive crisis, a massive problem, so then they can then push the narrative of, okay, well, crypto's the answer. This is what I'm thinking, that, you know, we have even pensions are in trouble in the UK. These big companies and these big banks, they have a lot invested in pensions, and people don't understand, not only is their pound losing value day by day because of some government politician is saying this or saying that, and it's affecting what's going on. They have no clue what they're doing. That most of the time, as you can see with like Liz Truss, she has no clue even what she's saying. So she's just reading a script, and when she's asked a legitimate question, they just mumble off things they've done in the past. They can't answer a direct question. They have to go on about stuff that they had nothing to do with, that their government did or their party did, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's just the perfect way of talking without actually saying anything. They're experts at it. If I was in charge myself, I'd make it mandatory that you have to answer 3 questions, yes or no. What do you think? Comment below. Back to this. So the UK pensions are in serious trouble, and if we have something like this where our elderly futures money is in trouble, plus you have a problem with the pound, so that money that they even have in there, let's say it's £200 a week, well, actually it has a spending value now of 180 because we've had 10% inflation through the past year, and people's savings and so on and so on. You know, it could have a massive knock-on effect, and I think it's going to take one of these pensions to collapse and be destroyed and just, you know, be liquidated for them to say, right, we're going to hold an X amount, 5, 10%, 15, 20% of our portfolio. Instead of putting it into this stock or that stock, we're going to put it into crypto, and we're going to put it into a Bitcoin or XRP or an Ethereum, one of these that has a use case or does something like holds value. And now you think, where have you come up with this nonsense? Why, you know, am I clutching at straws? And back on what I said about needing a crisis to bring a necessity that we didn't even know we had. It happens quite a lot, especially in politics. But here you can see there's a video here from Kevin Cage. Go follow Kevin Cage. He's a brilliant channel. I followed him for a while, and yeah, he does very good videos. And yeah, so credit to him for this. But he posted this video about how Ripple were paid by the US to come up with a chip that can be implanted into the human body. So I'm just going to play this video for you here.
Well, if you look at the planning and the design and the competition, it's fluid right now. You know, there's competition over what the design will be. It was very interesting. I won't bore you with all the details, but I had an incredible experience in Denmark a year ago, and I was trying to figure out what's going on in Denmark. They had one of the tech firms in Denmark was being paid by the U.S. Navy to come up with a chip that could be implanted in the human body that would integrate with Ripple. Yeah. So Ripple is a crypto, and it's one that's gotten a lot of promotion from the American establishment, in my experience, just my impression. So why is the U.S. Navy paying a Danish tech company to come up with an implantable chip that will integrate with Ripple?
Now, make of that what you will, but take note of this, that this video was posted in 2020, just as everything was kicking off. And we know what was kicking off around that time. So you think, well, why would they do that? Well, Ripple is going to be, as you know, if you know this channel and you know XRP, that it's going to be the global payment system. So if you have a global payment system and you want everything to be settled via XRP or via your network, and they mean everything, the slogan is all the money. So if you have everything, then everybody needs to be, they have to have the technology on them to pay and receive and so on and so on. And a credit card's going to go forward? Probably not. So it seems more likely that we're going to have a chip where you can just have it implanted in your wrist. You walk into work, blip, it'll tell you when you came in and when you come out, and you'll be paid straight away into that. That's the plans. But you think, okay, well, that's Ripple. Ripple is just one of the biggest companies in the world at the moment. Finance, they're paying everything around. And it's like, maybe that's just a bit of hearsay, or she's a mad old lady or whatever. But obviously, if you look up, there's a patent. You can just look it up. Just type it into Google, 060606 patent. And yes, that's 3 6s, which is a sign of the devil, which is the patent. And what patent would that be? And who would have it? This is a cryptocurrency system using body activity. Who owns this patent? If you look here, you can see this is a Microsoft patent. And what it is you can look this up. This is human body activity associated with tasks provided to the user. So for example, if you go to work and you do whatever job or whatever it may be, there's a couple of Black Mirror videos, episodes, where they go into some dark stuff like this. But basically this is saying that you will have to perform a task and then you will be paid with it. But this is all connected. This is all to do with an implant. And this is Microsoft and Ripple. And when you have like these type of companies getting involved in this, you can look at what else like Bill Gates is getting involved in. He's buying all the farmland and things like that, because obviously that's another necessity that people need, which is food. Yeah, these type of things make you scratch your head and go, well, why are they getting involved with this stuff? Why are these companies getting involved with it? You have Starlink getting involved with the satellites and the payments potentially. You have the American Navy and Ripple making these chips, designing these chips in Denmark. Why would they be doing it there? What's it got to do with the Navy? You have Microsoft coming up with this. Like, what's going on? Why are they doing it? Do they know something that's going to happen? Is there going to be a collapse like China, like Turkey, Argentina? We have the pound, the British pound's going down. All these things are making me think, and Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank, all these things that are just happening right at the perfect time, And if you take into account the total money printed, you can see here, since 2020, it's gone right through the roof, printing more money than ever. That's like a third of the total money printed since the 70s has been printed since the 2020. In 2 years, they've printed as much, or 1/3 as much as they did since the 70s. So, that seems extravagant. It seems crazy, and that everything's just going to go back to normal. And this, it just doesn't make sense. It seems like they're trying, like I've said before, the powers that be are trying to collapse the system to move to the next one. I think if people woke up in the morning and everything was on crypto and these, the technology changed and you're getting paid in this instead of pounds now, or this or whatever, then I think there'd be an uproar. If you have a financial collapse like Credit Suisse, like the British pound is doing, China's going, all these countries that at this moment, there's many more, I'm sure there's comments below, you can comment below, let us know what's going on in your country, but all these things I think are going to be the catalyst to push us towards crypto. And I think like this analogy of like, we've already jumped off the building, we're falling, we just haven't hit the ground yet with this situation. And this is what's going on. At the moment we're at free fall. We don't even know that it's over yet. It's just gonna hit the ground and that's it. It's gonna be done. And all of a sudden we're gonna have this new technology, which is gonna be such a necessity because it's gonna help us, it's gonna help with climate change and all these things. And people are still now holding on to their cash in the bank and their money, thinking everything's all good, and things are fine. When you have like Turkey getting in 550% more gold than they usually do, Russia stacked up on gold. I'm sure there's a lot of countries that are just stacking up on essentials because they can see what's happening. And if you have something where we've printed more money than ever before, how can that be sustainable. It can't. It's almost like they know it's going to come to an end. There's a brilliant documentary where they explain how in 2008 it nearly turned to a Great Depression, where you can see on this chart here that in 2008 we printed quite a lot of money, but you can see it settled down. But again, now we've gone on to print way more than we did then. So if we were nearly in the Great Depression then, what's going to happen when this all calms down? I think there's going to be big trouble, and people ain't going to realize what's happened, and there's going to be a very big shuffle of the finances and who's in power and who's getting, who has value. Is cash going to be valuable? I don't think so. I think, we could go back to times where in the past where it's been more valuable to burn the money than it is to hold the money and spend it, because it just holds nothing and they just keep printing it. And yeah, let me know what you think below. This is just one of these type of videos where I'm just going in deep with this theory. Nothing is financial advice. None of it is, 100% going to happen. But this is just what I'm seeing here. I'm connecting dots, and let me know what you think below.